Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me today for Stay Free with Russell Brand. And what a special day it is. Whether you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you receive this information, perhaps you're in a capsule in outer space at some far-flung distant time, or perhaps 48 hours have passed and everything we're discussing is absolutely irrelevant because the news cycle moves at such a pace now that Kamala Harris has probably been replaced by a cyborg and Donald Trump has probably been shot with a crossbow. How fast is the world moving? When will it slow down? And when will we be given a reasonable perspective? That last question, at least, I can ask directly because we are being joined by my beloved friend, Bret Weinstein. Bret, thank you so much for being with us today. And if you're a member of our Awakened Wonder community on Locals, you can watch us. You can watch these interviews early. Bret, you know I'm never confident with the Stein or Steen, and I feel like I saw you twitch. Is it Einstein? Weinstein?
Can the record reflect that you are the one who invoked Einstein here? I had nothing to do with it, but yes, it rhymes with Einstein. There you go.
That's the mnemonic, isn't it? Bret Weinstein.
Yes.
Excuse me, I should know by now, but it's a difficult thing to, I struggle. I don't even know who my children are, at least not all of them.
Look, I even still screw it up on occasion.
Thanks, Bret. Thank you for joining us today, and thanks for participating in a conversation that I suppose we should own. We've recorded it, but Bret, the first thing that I want to say is, I've noticed a change in the type of content that you're putting out, which I attribute to you either becoming sort of more visionary and shamanic, certainly your outfit would suggest that, or you're beginning to panic about the sort of potential apocalyptic end times that we may be entering. Do you feel that something is cyclically shifting in a way that perhaps Terence McKenna might have judged to be a kind of, a kind of hyper-reality, that events themselves are happening at a faster and a more bewildering rate?
There is no question that remarkable things are up, and the pace of it is insane. I will say I have been concerned just from first principles about the stability of our civilization for decades. So that's not a new concern. But the various, we can see various things that suggest a kind of new level of jeopardy. And it's very hard to interpret what they are. I will say our information environment has turned to garbage, and that makes it hard to know what actually constitutes evidence, how one should interpret it. But the evidence that things are unstable and dangerously so seems to be everywhere.
One of the examples where this particular phenomenon started to land on me was, say, with the Douglas Murray Mehdi Hussein debate. Both, I would say, brilliant communicators, both men who can put across arguments very lucidly, both use evidence and rhetoric incredibly skillfully. But you don't even have to be a sort of a communicator of that standing. I just noticed, like, if I look at social media or various video on demand type platforms, that I could watch, if I wanted, the same clip of Kamala Harris or Donald Trump and see, like, David Pakman on the left saying this is evidence that Kamala Harris is fantastic and that Donald Trump's an absolute imbecile. And then I could watch, I don't know, Shapiro or Crowder or someone on the right saying that this is the opposite. It's almost as if the idea of an objective reality is fraying in a way that perhaps philosophy, an ontology might have offered us previously. Now we can sort of see it in media, like there isn't one reality that we're experiencing.
Well, I mean, you probably know what I'm going to say to that. There is one reality that we are experiencing, but there are two perceptual versions of it that cannot be reconciled. And part of that, I have a feeling, is an echo of a historical pattern that has undoubtedly been lived many times. And another part of it is probably downright inorganic. It's just being created for us, where we are being shepherded into silos that then govern what we perceive. So I've been struggling for the right metaphor, and I believe Plato's cave is a very important story, and there is a reason that we keep retelling that story in updated versions. The Truman Show is Plato's cave, The Matrix is Plato's cave, and at some level, it needs another update where you have a kind of fractal Plato's cave, because what you're really describing is two cave walls with different movies on them. And the populations are sitting next to each other. So they don't understand that they are seeing two different movies. But that's what they're seeing, and neither of them is reality. That's the problem, right? What's outside the cave is yet a third narrative, and I would imagine a guy like you is well versed in Plato's cave, and you know exactly what happens to the guy who discovers that the real world is outside and then comes back and tries to liberate his comrades.
Yes,
It does not go well.
He's greeted as a kind of king and celebrated. Gets a lovely girlfriend and lives happily ever after, I think is how that allegory ends.
That's not how I remember it, but...
Well, I take issue with that. I'm a scholar of the classics. Bret, I was thinking, like, before we go sort of more deeply into sort of some of the cultural paraphernalia around this election, I was struck by, for example, when I was at the RNC, who could not be struck by the phenomena of Hulk Hogan tearing open his shirt. And I was thinking, my God, this is sort of what an outrageous and extraordinary spectacle this is. And sort of my sort of former haughty intellectual self, metropolitan elitist self even, was somewhat offended by the kind of trash symbols that were on display there. Then I thought, well, God, is it really any different than George Clooney endorsing then unendorsing, or Jack Black? What are we talking about now? Is it just a matter of taste? You know, because or Megan Thee Stallion, you know, like if celebrity endorsements are permissible, are we just now quarreling about the aesthetics or the class? And that's, in a way, that does return us quite quickly to some of the key themes in the election and some of the key divisions that are being addressed: snobbery, basket of deplorables, loathing of elites. You know, that's in a sense the cultural artifacts define the tension of these events, perhaps more articulately than policy, maybe.
Well, I think you are exactly right that the battle between the rank and file is about taste. And when I say the rank and file, that extends into people who believe they are elites in these circles. Hollywood turns out to be the useful idiots of the blue team, though they think they are important in a political sense. They're actually being marshaled like chess pieces. But you're right. It's very easy to look at the one that isn't your team and think, oh my God, do they not see it? Do they not understand how grotesque and phony this is? And then to look at your own team and not see it. That's the problem. And this is a general feature of humans. You've obviously traveled. You know what happens when you come home. There's this brief window where you can see your own culture. Mm-hmm. I find the advertisements of my own culture particularly shocking when I return from somewhere and I think, oh my goodness, people don't see the manipulation. They think it's not working on them, and yet obviously it is. So the problem is that our election is about something. It's about something profoundly important, and it may even be the inflection point for the future of Western civilization. I could make that argument. But that significance does not show up in the theater that is taking place around the campaign. That is, I don't know, there are various metaphors for it. It's ponies and balloons would be an obscure reference, but nonetheless, it's a consumer good that is being used to cloak, I don't know, a couple of different Trojan horses in this case. So again, we're looking at ancient themes that now need a fractal reinterpretation in order for us to understand what we're seeing.
Well, we remain corralled within cultural arguments that I get the sense either side would be happy for us to remain within. I also feel that there are issues that are escalating a pace that impossible to ignore, but somehow will also remain unaddressed. I wonder if your perspective, Bret, has changed on a subject like migration. Like 20 years ago, when I was starting out in stand-up, I would have kind of ridiculed the establishment media for their general assertion that mass migration presents the threat of insurgency, or that some of the migrants might be terrorists, let alone anything more hocus pocus or rococo, like that there might be sort of fighting age males disproportionately represented who are preordained signal could sort of participate in false flag events, or even real events, real crises, real conflicts. But my country now is increasingly experiencing a lot of disturbance. And to one of the subjects we touched upon a minute ago, like I can watch like perfectly credible commentators of the left talk about riots and disturbances that are definitely connected to migration, whether that is just the way that the issues are perceived or whether they are actually connected to migration. Certainly, the people in the regions where the protests or riots are taking place feel like the issue that they're confronting is migration, and they will condemn the sort of commentators as sort of racist and right-wing. But it's a subject that's becoming, more and more prevalent, and the framing around it is changing. And I wonder how you feel that, what kind of resolutions are available for something that's so contentious, incendiary, and by its nature divisive. We're going to leave YouTube now. Click the link in the description for the answer to that question and many more wonderful musings from Bret Weinstein. See you in a second. Click the link. Join us over there.